at some point, you have that reflection. It's like, actually what you're doing is you're doing financial inclusion, but at a B2B scale. But actually, it's about in the supply chain, how quickly can you get the product out to that consumer? If you take 9 months to buy one piece of tech, you are dead in the water. Our vision is to be the place where enterprise goes to buy technology.
Today we have Karan Jain, the CEO and founder of NayaOne, which provides banks with access to hundreds of fintechs and data sets from a single access point. Karan's got a long journey before getting to where he is today, having started off in tax, moving around different countries, getting into banking, getting very senior, before looking at what's the problems that he keeps seeing they want to get changed. And many of you might understand working at large corporates, how hard it is for new companies to get through all the bureaucracy and all the red tape to get in so they can test. And this is the problem that he kept seeing over and over again that he wanted to tackle. And now there's hundreds of fintechs on his platform that banks can get access to. And this is going to expand into the future into all different types of companies so that startups and innovative companies can get into corporates much easier. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. So glad to have you on today, and you've done so many incredible things now, and NayaOne is growing so well. But if we rewind, right, so where did this all start from? What did you actually want to be when you were a kid?
Thank you for having me, Amar. Great to be here. What did I want to be as a kid? I think like any Indian kid, you're probably going down the doctor, lawyer, engineer kind of route. My parents, one was in the bank and the other one's a psychologist. I'm like, okay, look, that's kind of where I started. I've got a cousin who's a pilot, so okay, pilot sounds cool. So I don't actually recall where I landed, but those seem to be the memory.
And did you feel like you were pressured to go down those kind of routes, or was it more like you just weren't sure at that point?
No, I wasn't. I don't think I was pressured. You naturally get attracted to maths and physics just because how you're growing up. And when I was at uni, when I was finishing school, I was looking at what to do. I ended up picking engineering and accounting. And the reason I picked engineering and accounting as a double degree, because I wasn't sure about either of them.
Yeah. Good way, yeah.
So it was like, the kind of thinking at that point was, okay, if the world is growing, they will need engineers. If the world is consolidating, they will need accountants. I really don't know what I want to do, so why don't I do both? So that's how I ended up with that.
And in studying both of those, what did you find you enjoyed more when you were at university?
You know what? For different reasons, for different reasons, I enjoyed the business and the accounting degree because it was at nighttime, which means I could enjoy during the day. And I started working really early on during the university. So something I could work, I could earn, and then I can go. So I enjoyed that. The engineering side, I enjoyed because how it challenged my brain to think differently. And I remember going through the degree, I was like, there is no way I'm ever using this in real life, like on a weekly basis. Like this makes no sense. I'd never use it in real life. But anyway, let's just get through it. Only towards the end and after your degree, you realize it actually wasn't about what they were teaching you, the content, like on circuits at work, but it's how it trains your brain. So I enjoyed both of them, but for different reasons.
I remember I was always frustrated because after I studied economics and at Bath, and what they actually wanted from Bath was all the engineers in consulting. I was like, but I studied this topic. But like you said, it's that thought process which is so important.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you started working quite early as well at university. What were you doing there?
Dude, so I was just catching up with somebody, another Asian friend, and it's like, I'm going as an intern at investment banking. I'm like, that sounds horrible. I don't want to do that. Like, there's a part of me that wants to prioritize life and not just grind it, But then I'm like, couldn't help it. So I was like, how do you find that? And this is back in Sydney, right? So that's where I grew up. And he said, just go to the job website, don't type in intern, type in the bank or the wherever you want to work type of thing. I can't remember what it was, but there was some little hack, did it. And some cadet job popped up for, like $19,000 a year type of thing. And I was like, all right. So I just applied for it. I actually worked as a cadet accountant at a mid-tier accounting firm, which I really enjoyed. Like best grounding from a business, like what drives a business and those points.
So I guess because you enjoyed that, is that where you carried on after university down that path?
So that's what I was doing. So I did that for a couple of years while I was finishing uni. And then, another conversation hanging out with friends. I was like, oh, there's graduate programs opening up in, KPMG, EY, that. I'm like, oh, interesting. Went back to that site, typed it in. So I actually didn't find a graduate position, found like a lateral hire position. But because I already had 2 years working experience, and I hadn't finished my degree, I applied for it, got the interviewed well because I had professional experience compared to the grads that were getting interviewed, and got hired, not as a grad, but as a consultant, while I was younger and hadn't finished my degree, to the grads that were getting hired. But at the same time, like the experience pays, right? Like that's one thing that early on made sense, that work experience, genuine work experience pays. And we actually apply that now at NayaOne, just as a sidebar. Is like, if we get interns in or anybody in, it's like, sure, they're gonna do some dirty work, but make sure they'll learn something by the end of the time they leave us, because it's been invaluable for me in the early days.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people listening won't have thought about that kind of a path, right? Of going to university, but also having a day job in some ways at the same time.
Yeah, kind of ended up. So we were immigrants from India to Australia. Like my parents were, and I'm like, okay, less than 10 years old. Okay, cool, let's go. And then, and as you're growing up, and it's a very, very similar culture to England. It's very multicultural, very, very friendly culture. Like everyone's got a school, like a kind of a side job at school, like whether it's Macca's or Kmart or, M&S type thing. And I picked one of those up. So when I finished school, I'm like, oh, so I could do evening classes for my business degree and actually spend full days working at Kmart. And that's what I did for a couple of weeks, maybe 2 months. And I was like, this is a bit dumb. Like I could actually be doing a proper job. And that's where that's kind of how it fell into it. I mean, 17-year-old getting a 19 grand at that time, like it was pretty good.
Yeah. And then going down that path, right? So obviously you continued in that kind of accounting area, KPMG and those kind of places. What made you decide to keep going down that path, or when was the next fork in the road?
Yeah, so in KPMG, I was actually in a business unit called R&D Tax, which is like any organization that's doing research and development, they can put those dollars against for a tax claim. And that's where I got exposed to a lot of mining tech, a lot of banking tech, a lot of, e-commerce tech. And so that was really nice exposure, because I was able to speak to the owners of these companies and the leaders to kind of understand how they were thinking about product, how they were applying engineering. Hey, not to forget my other degree that I had not yet finished was engineering. So I was able to apply that. And that's what gave me the taste for, one, engineering from a mind, like pure engineering. And secondly, banking tech. That's where it's kind of like got my, first thing. And from there, once I left KPMG, I went into, and you won't even see it anywhere in my resume, because I lasted about 3 weeks, went to work as an engineer at a smeltering plant. Lasted about 3 weeks, dude. That's hard work. That's just a whole different dynamic of, at this point, I've been in an office for about 4 or 5 years. Factory floors are very different. So I ended up weirdly enough, in a tech team at that time, Vodafone, or 3 Mobile. So now I learned SQL for the first time, and I was horrible at it. It's like, okay, better off as a consultant. He can't write code. But anyway, so did that, and then I was like, okay, I'm kind of done here. And then I ended up in insurance kind of thing. So yeah, that's how and then I've been, then that's almost a separate chapter, but that's like the start of financial services for me, financial services tech for me.
I felt that's how this might end up being from smeltering to being a founder.
Yeah.
It's an interesting journey there.
Yeah,
so like fintech founder from smeltering,
from the smeltering factory floor. Yeah. So once I got into insurance, I got to learn a lot more about the insurance industry, how tech is applied, how the insurance industry. Like when I was there, I was like, whenever I am done with the corporate life, the thing I want to do is an insurance company, because there's so much margin.
I think because they're so fun.
Yeah, no, they're not fun at all. But they're getting fun. But it was more about like, okay, this is a great business. I should get into this. But also within that, I got the opportunity to learn Agile or Scrum, the ways of working. And I think I didn't realize this, but I had the entrepreneurial mindset from very early on. So, one of the organizations around town were paying like, $1,800 or $2,000 a day for an agile consultant. And I'm like, I got to meet this guy. Like, what's he doing? What wisdom's coming out to him? So I catch up with these guys and like, just talking common sense, man. Like, you're just straight talking common sense. It's like, yeah, get paid for it. I'm like, all right. So I literally quit.
Yeah.